In this video, we are going to focus on equations with fractions. Recall from algebra that a fraction such as x over 3 represents x divided by 3. This means that to solve an equation on one side, we should firstly multiply the denominator. So we really need to focus on our division here. And you're going to find the relationship between division and multiplication will come to the forefront, because when you get a multiplication situation in an equation, you do the opposite and divide. And the same thing goes for division. When you get a division situation in an equation, you do the opposite and multiply. So we are going to calculate these 4 questions following the colour coding of the steps key here. And we will start on the left with number 1. It says 4x divided by 3 equals 8. So what we need to do is look at the fact that this is a division and the opposite of division is multiplication. So I cross out the denominator and give it to the other side. And from there, what we do is drop down the 4x because we haven't used it yet, and we solve the 8 times 3. And that gives us 24. Now we are at a multiplication situation, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So I put down 2 fraction lines indicating division, and the number next to the pronumeral is the denominator. It goes to both sides because what you do with one side you do to the other. And now we need to start cancelling out and solving x. We also know that 4 divided by 4 equals 1, but we cancel that out, and we then drop down the pronumeral of x. We don't put a 1 in front of it. That's why I say 4 divided by 4 cancels out. Drop the equal sign, and then go, how many times does 4 go into 24? It goes 6 times. So now the value of x up here is 6. And if you want to check your work, you can substitute that value of 6 in and calculate. If you do that, you go 4 times 6 is 24, divided by 3 equals 8. Let's take a look at this next question here. It says 4x plus 15 divided by 9 equals 3. And what you can see here is its division. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to cross out the denominator and give it to the other side. From there, we simply drop down the 4x plus 15 because we haven't used it yet. The equal sign, and we solve this here. 3 times 9 is 27. We now move on, and we have a 2-step linear equation to deal with. And remember, we want letters on the left and numbers on the right. This number doesn't belong here, so I'm going to start here and try and eliminate it. So the opposite of positive 15 is negative 15, and what I do to one side, I must do to the other. And 15 minus 15 cancels out to 0. So I simply drop down the 4x equals, and I solve this 27 minus 15, and that gives me 12. Now I have a multiplication situation here, so the opposite of multiplication is division, so I put my fraction lines to indicate division, and the number next to the pronumeral sits underneath both sides, because what you do to one side you must do to the other. And 4 divided by 4 cancels out, because that equals 1, and then I simply just drop down the x, the pronumeral, and put an equal sign. I don't put the 1 in front of the pronumeral, we never do that. And now I solve, how many times does 4 go into 12? It goes 3 times. Alright, let's now take a look at the third question here. It says 4 plus 5x divided by 2 equals 29. So it's a little bit different now. We have got an additional term here, which is a number 4. And what we also need to understand is that this symbol here belongs to this term. So it's a positive 1, and it won't really affect it too much now. If it's negative like this one, it will change. So let's look at this one here. Again, I want letters on the left, numbers on the right. I need to think about this fact here that this 4 is in the wrong place. So I'm going to start here and leave this fraction for later. So opposite of positive 4 is negative 4, and what I do to one side I must do to the other. I only work with the same types of terms. These are like terms because they are just simply digits, they're numbers, there's no pronumerals. And we know that 4 minus 4 cancels out to 0, and we simply drop the 5x divided by 2 equals, and we solve this here. And 29 minus 4 is 25. Now we are back to this situation here. 5x divided by 2 equals 25. That's division. Opposite of division is multiplication. So I cross out the denominator 2 and give it to the other side. I then need to solve that, dropping the 5x down that hasn't been used and solving this 25 multiplied by 2, and that gives me 50. Now I have a multiplication situation. Opposite of multiplication is division, so I place fraction lines underneath to indicate division, and the number next to the pronumeral goes under both sides because what you do to one side you must do to the other. We know that 5 divided by 5 equals 1, and that cancels out, and we simply drop the pronumeral x down and equals, we never put the 1 in front of the pronumeral. And how many times does 5 go into 50? It goes 10 times. And lastly, on the far right here, it's exactly the same type of question that we've just done here, but it has a negative symbol. So this term owns the negative, this subtraction. So again, I want letters on the left and numbers on the right. This 7 doesn't belong here. I'm going to start here and do the opposite of positive 7, which is negative 7. And what I do to one side, I must do to the other. 7 minus 7 cancels out to 0. I drop down what I already have there and I haven't used yet. And then I solve this side here. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. So be careful with your negative numbers here. Now we are at this situation, but we've got negatives. So it's division. Opposite of division is multiplication. So I cross out the denominator and give it to the other side. And from there, I simply write down what I haven't used yet, which is negative 2x equals, and then I go negative 2 multiplied by 3, and that gives me negative 6. From there, I can see it's a multiplication situation. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So I place my fraction lines down to indicate division, and I give the number next to the pronumeral as a denominator for both sides. Now I can cancel this out. 2 divided by 2 equals 1, but I do not write the 1 down. I simply drop down the pronumeral of x and equals. And now I solve. How many times does 2 go into 6? It goes 3 times. A negative gives me a positive answer.